The dev live stream for the bit of teasing of Revenant, as well as teasers for the future and coming forward, has officially dropped. It was about 45 minutes long, as per the usual with these dev insight streams, and I'm going to do my best to break it down, simplify it, and tell you some of the more important parts without having to watch all 45 minutes and hopefully keep it down to less than 20 minutes. Starting off, we have, of course, the teasers for the next season, which, if you do not know, is going to be focused on Fickrul and the Scorn, as Fickrul has come back from the shadows of over 5 years of being gone, and it seems right here, we can see right here from this fan art, obviously he does have the other echo that it grants him whatever ability it grants him. As well, it is fashioned to his spear and is already looking quite large in comparison. And we do see our own armor right here. I don't know why I struggle to say that. But essentially, we do see the essentially kind of Transylvanian witch hunter. I guess that's the best way to put it. But as well, they did mention with the story beats that the Scorn will be evolving, and essentially what it is the Scorn is developing, evolving. Unfortunately, to make Scorn, you need dead Elixni, so they are essentially going on an Elixni hunting spree, and we're going to be working with Mithrax, Ido, and supposedly enemies of our enemies in terms of Fickrul, which right now the obvious choice seems to be Aramis, and again, this is not confirmed, this is just my guessing. Obviously, we're probably going to get help from Aramis, we're likely going to see Spider. The debate is whether or not we're going to see new Elixni Barons then again, or otherwise Archons or the like, which of course is rare considering we've killed almost all of them. These seasonal buffs that are going to be taking place is in the tonic system, which is going to be split between combat and rewards. The combat tonics will buff specifically artifact perks, which are going to be unique because there is going to be other rarities that also touch on more than one artifact perk at a time. We'll get into more of that later of specific perks. The rewards tonic is essentially going to be how you're going to be earning seasonal rewards. Now they do say pretty much right off the bat, for some reason the seasonal offerings this round won't be craftable. Like the weapons available won't be craftable, but with the focusing on the reward tonics, you can get enhanced loadouts as well as the rest, because obviously they did mention that most of the new gear coming will be enhanceable, but that's a weird decision that you're allowing us to pick and choose and farm, but also making it so that that is the only good way to get the good rolls we want. Mixed opinions there, but of course we do get a bit of attunement, as they even put it. They literally say attuning for more broad spectrum things, so more attunement sounds greater for the loot as a whole. The next thing they get into is Onslaught. It is actually getting quite a large update in the fact that it has at least 3 new maps coming according to Bungie, not to mention expanding the enemies available. As we can see on screen, it is Scorn, and not only is it Scorn, but it is actually currently seasonal Scorn. So it might be that Onslaught is a bit seasonally relevant, as according to the video, we do actually see here and there a few more seasonal style intermittent moments like we see going into the pyramids and like. So it's entirely possible we do have a key part in the season in Onslaught. However, we need to mention the Season Pass exotic is in full view and pretty much described akin almost all details aside from the catalyst. Basically, a fighting lion, but stasis. And it can spawn ammo for your allies. I don't recall if they gave us a name, but is a kinetic infinite ammo grenade launcher breach loader that allows you to spawn heavy ammo. If you see in the bar in the bottom left, Vestigial Alchemy, that is a perk that if you fill the bar up to halfway after defeating enemies and collecting what seems to be remnants like Thorn or Lumina, at halfway you can consume a action and kill something and you will spawn special ammo. If you do it at a full bar, you will do the same action and spawn heavy ammo for your allies. Not to mention, on top of all of it, it is a mountaintop grenade launcher, which if you don't know what that means, the projectiles fly permanently straight and fast, as well as being able to rocket jump with reduced self-detonation damage, which the number of perks arising on this thing is infinite. Plus, like I mentioned, it is a primary ammo grenade launcher, which means you can fire it unlimited amounts of time. This is only the second of its kind to Fighting Lion, which is a bit of an icon considering how useful it can be in almost any scenario, whether it be needing more single target damage, a little bit more crowd control, or just being he in Crucible. Then what you're seeing right here is a unique thing, a 2-shot burst shotgun. Akin to the new archetype of handy cannons that fire 2 rounds per trigger pull, I imagine is functional in the exact same way, which is a interesting archetype. I don't know if it's going to be aggressive 2-burst or a whole new archetype of something in general. It might be running on a new rounds per minute or damage scale. I have no idea, of course, because they just mentioned that it's a thing. But then going into more stuff they talk about, they actually did mention that Stasis is actually getting a few new handy elemental perks. They did mention one, I think they called it Rhymecraft or something like that, where basically stasis crystals being destroyed or frozen targets being destroyed would grant you Frost Armor, which is a new mechanic that actually sounds like it. Well, Frost Armor is a new mechanic, but the new, what's the word? Association? I'm just going to say that word, but the new synergy, the newest synergy with Stasis applying is actually seeming quite useful considering how many crystals you can make and how it seems like Frost Armor wasn't easy to keep up if you didn't exactly know what you were doing. But aside from that, they do, of course, mention other new perks. They forgot the name of it at one point, but it sounded like Volt Shot, but instead of reloading, it's just Concentrated Fire, which otherwise sounds like Polaris Lance went electric. But among other perks, they did mention one other thing I am forgetting off the top of my head, but otherwise, it does sound like the craft is going unique as they are, again, introducing new archetypes, blending new archetypes into other exotics like before, and otherwise blending into more of the recently added subclass 3.0 verbiage, which honestly is a great move in terms of sandbox. The more and more blending and synergy that we can allow for every weapon, the more and more people are likely to branch out and play with all elements instead of just what is meta at the time. Another thing they mention is how Icebreaker is going to be working in the new world. As many of you know, in the original Destiny game, Icebreaker was a essentially infinite ammo sniper rifle that would explode enemies on contact. Before, it would just regenerate ammo over time passively, but it didn't exactly have a reserve. It would just fill right into the associated magazine, as it were. But with the new Icebreaker, it will have 10 shots instead of 6, but in order to be less lazy and allow you to loaf in the back of the field the entire time, basically, it will function that in the way of bait and switch, or how it says Envious Assassin, where kills and assists with your other weapons will then refill Icebreaker while it is stowed, so that it can allow you to have some fun swap back and forth, or otherwise treat it like Envious Assassin, except it is required to generate the ammo at all, as opposed to just overfill the magazine, which, if they keep some spicy potential with spreading ignition, I am all for it. Plus, at the same time, it is the new dungeon exotic as previously mentioned in other twids and details, so it's going to be looking nifty. And we can actually see an interesting bit right here. I'm going to see if I can backtrack that. It almost looked like we had a stasis soul. I need to see if I can catch that in the act, because you can see it right about here. There is a floating, what looks like stasis projectile that is following him along. I don't know if that is good. Yeah, you can see it right about there. I don't know if that's a stasis soul or otherwise something afflicted by the new Banes that is going to be introduced, which is basically like alternate champions that are more elemental and the like. If you don't know what they were, that is, it could be a Bane debuff or otherwise a stasis soul. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself, but otherwise that is something to keep in mind, is how Icebreaker is coming back as well. Now I'm going to pause it here just so we can keep track of a few things. They do, of course, show the artifact in its entirety. They don't go over every perk, but it seems very stasis, grenade launcher, and otherwise that focus, because we can see right here we have Anti-Barrier Scout, Overload SMG, Unstoppable Pulse Rifle, Anti-Barrier Shotgun, and Overload Grenade Launcher as focused before. So you do have coverage of the basic primaries in case you want to go full primary and not have to depend on basically everything else. Special ammo, you know what I mean. Primary is best for anti-champion just because you can always have it. You've run out, it is a problem. But they do go over a few things, and one of the things to mention, aside from the variety of stasis benefit perks, is the introduction, or the reintroduction of Breach and Clear. If you don't know what that was, way back during, I think it was Season of the Splicer, cutting back in to mention that also Chromo Rush and other Season of the Splicer weapons will also be returning according to the dev stream. They had it so that any grenade launcher would just weaken and buff enemies, or God, I'm struggling with the words, but Breach and Clear was basically Oppressive Darkness. Anything you shot with a grenade launcher was weakened, and then only to grenade launcher damage. It was super easy to keep up because it just was consistent grenade launcher damage. You can see right here with things like Rapid Impacts for dealing damage to grenade launcher, increases reload speed of grenade launchers. They're really focusing on grenade launchers, if you cannot tell. We do see one other thing. I think this one right here, I think Breach and Clear is right here, and right down in the bottom right in the pinnacle cap area, we do see basically, I think it was grenade launchers are also unstoppable, or grenade launchers trigger kinetic tremors that can stun unstoppables. It seems like grenade launchers are definitely the play for the next season, as they have shaped this up. Not only grenade launchers, but also stasis grenade launchers, which is going to be nice actually having a reason to use stasis aside from the associate perks and prismatic, and actually use it, since I remember messing around with it at the early days of Final Shape, but not sticking around with it for long because it didn't seem so potent compared to prismatic. But of course, artifacts, more on that later in the future when we get the full details. A fun little addition is the next earnable skimmer in the game. There is 3 skimmers, the Gallahorn one, the one from Guardian Games, but now one you can earn from Xur, which is the Zerf board, if you understand what I'm saying there. It is, of course, Xur themed. You'll be able to earn it from Xur. It will cost a pretty penny, considering, if I recall what is said, it is 97 strange coins, and of course you can only hold 99, but of course it is a free earnable skimmer in case you want to get your hands on one and not have to actually pay for it. And you can see right here the Zerf board and all of its shiny glory. And they did touch more on Vesper's Host, of course the dungeon launching alongside of Act 2 of Revenant, as well as the details on some of the raid race stuff. Of course, as usual, there's Twitch rivals associated with it, as per usual with these races, but with a special little note that if you are among some of the top 3 racers to actually finish the dungeon first, you will get a special version of the dungeon hoodie that will be available for sale with your custom-made embroidery. And they do show it right here, the hoodie that is going to be available, as well as the bracelet that is associated with the dungeon clear. Bungie rewards, of course. This means you do have to pay for it yourself if you want access to it, but otherwise it is available for you. They also touch on Festival of the Lost up and coming, which of course is the thing we voted on last year, ages ago, with Evil Hunters, good Titans, and I think good Warlocks, if I remember correctly. Or actually, I think it was Evil Warlocks as well. Personally, I like the look, I guess, but at the same time, I still am salty we didn't get Godzilla Hunter. I think the idea of wizards was kind of just a boring idea, personally. But, you know, it fits with the season, I guess, although I kind of wish Halloween themes seemed more unique, but with the associate, essentially Transylvanian Witch Hunter season, it's going to feel very in place and not spooky fun. That's just me, though. A large portion of the back half was actually talking about narrative design and how the development is going to be going forward. They did show some concept art and interesting bits talking about the upcoming story and how it will change with Codename Apollo and Codename Behemoth and a part of Codename Frontiers. So many codenames. I'm going to stop saying codename now. But aside from that, they do actually talk about how the associate expansions will be a little bit smaller compared to things like Final Shape or Taken King, but we do have a comparison. They do say that it seems to be along the same size of Rise of Iron. So we'll be getting 2 Rise of Iron size expansions that will, of course, narratively develop the story. And they do mention that in terms of pace, it will allow them to, of course, keep the story faster. So if you were a part of the Destiny crew that only showed up for the yearly expansion and disappeared for the seasons associated, you will have more to do, as there will be more things in between. And of course, they do show concept art here. It is of a new destination, so you can make many guesses. There's no official things they name. Of course, they don't tell us anything. We don't have any hints to the name. The only hints we have is that little bit of concept art of where it could be. Of course, they literally haven't said anything other than it is a new destination, and we are stuck with the rest of the enigma. Something they talk about, which I will go in further detail with his own respective video, is essentially armor and stat reworks that will be coming. Essentially, they are going to be reworking it so that armor is more simplified in terms of stat distribution. If you don't know what the term dump stat is, if you look at some of the high-focused armor where you see it's like 2, 4, 30, 30, 2, 4, 4, essentially the lowest stats that are pointless in that armor, you're looking at the big spikes. That is what you want. The low stats, they're pointless. You don't need anything in that focus. They're going to be simplifying it so that dump stats are less abound. I assume it's to make it so that your chest plate will be always resilience, always recovery, or something like that, and just be, that is where you can max it out, get all the ones. I don't know specifics, but they did talk a lot about simplifying the variety of stats to not have to focus so much on dump stats, or at least min-maxing for stat hunting, and as well expanding past the top 100. I forget exactly how it's specified. It sounds like you'll get double activations of perks when you actually activate them, because as you know, strength, discipline, they're all associated with perk regeneration. It sounds like if you actually go over 100 and spec to however many points you want to add extra, it increases the chance of a double firing. I don't know if that means you'll throw 2 grenades at once, you'll just immediately get the recharge rate back, but they are speccing out so that 100 won't be the capacity anymore. You can't overcharge your stats. So if you're one of those people that like to get 200 stat bonuses, guess what? It is actually worth it now. So aside from that, there is more in a armor development that I will be covering in its own separate video. But aside from that, that's pretty much the end of some of the major points they talk about. I know I didn't cover everything and every talking point. That is just some of the big ones I felt like was most worth getting out to you and as quick as possible. And of course, I will be covering more things with Revenant as long as it comes out. As with Twids and everything else like that, we get more details. I imagine this week in Destiny up and coming, we'll be getting the full artifact as well as the associate perks and a variety of other things coming into Destiny. So with that, my name is TheMadScorpyon. I will see you in the next video.